happening to me.
So, you're listening to the inaugural episode of the Eric Roberts podcast. And today we'll be discussing The Pope of Greenwich Village from 1984, starring Eric Roberts, Mickey Rourke. Who else is in it, Roy?
Daryl Hannah.
And
Geraldine Page, Burt Young, Jack Kehoe, and Baron Harkonnen from Dune.
That's right. As the safecracker.
Yes.
Yeah, recognize those eyebrows.
Yes, he did have some eyebrows.
He was a great character, the safecracker.
Yes. So 1984, this is, I guess, why don't you walk us through a little bit of the plot? It starts off and we got Mickey Rourke getting dressed and ready. Mickey Rourke's character, do we see his face first or just inserts of him picking up things, really?
We're seeing his hands do some stuff, putting on a watch. There's a cigarette going.
Yeah. After I watched Pope of Greenwich Village, I watched another Mickey Rourke movie from a few years later called Homeboy. And he played a cowboy, I think IMDb called him Simple Cowboy, who is also a boxer. And the beginning was exactly the same, him just putting on his different cowboy stuff instead of his cool 50s, 80s guy stuff.
I have a strong association with Billy Joel in his character for some reason.
Well,
the shoes.
In some ways, his outfit seemed anachronistic, but then at the same time, I remember that, Billy Joel maybe helped kick it off in some way, and Queen with there was the big kind of 50s revival in the 80s.
Yeah.
And we went to school in Oklahoma, and we went to school in different towns initially, but then in the same town. But you always went to school in the same town. I just changed schools at some point. Did they always have 50s Day dating back to first grade for you in school? When we were in elementary school, there was something called 50s Week.
Yeah.
And there was a 50s Day, and we would have twists and things and stuff. And looking back now, 30 years later, there's absolutely no reason why we should have had a 50s Day. Was our town born in the 50s? Do you know how what is your recollection of 50s Day?
Oh, we had it. I think it was just a big revival was happening in the, what would you say, in the mid 80s?
Yes.
I think it really started
up till the 90s, just as far as having the 50s Day.
Oh yeah. Poodle skirts and the classic white t-shirt with the rolled up sleeves and the
sometimes
jeans.
They'd want you to have something emulating a cigarette pack rolled up in your sleeve. The teachers thought that was so cute.
Mm-hmm. A pack of cards.
The children smoking.
Yeah, so I don't know.
You think like me that it was really just a PTA meeting or a teacher's meeting where some of the, I'm guessing lady teachers, thought it would be a lot of fun to emulate Grease.
Yeah, I think they were all just boomers who grew up in that period, and it was an innocent time. And you think about stuff like the Stray Cats.
Yes.
And Happy Days. I was just thinking about Happy Days recently because Squiggy from Laverne and Shirley, that actor, died.
Oh, crazy.
Of COVID.
Well, you know what else was in the news recently was Pope of Greenwich Village. On December 3rd, it was announced that a mini-series based on the novel is being planned. I believe one of the producers is the son of, maybe not, but I could be getting, is the son of Tony Lip, who was featured in the first scene where you see the gangsters and the thing. He's one of the extras. Tony Lip was a character actor, maybe still is, cannot recall. I think he may have passed away, who the movie The Green Book is based on, the Viggo Mortensen character.
So I know that The Pope of Greenwich Village was a book, but I don't know what time period the book is from.
The book is from the 70s.
Okay.
I believe the late 70s, like maybe 79 or something even, but I'm not sure. It's a 70s crime novel, and I don't know. I looked it up. I tried to find some kind of version of it to read, and there was, but it made me sign up for something, so I didn't sign up. So I only read the first page of the novel, and it starts with what we come up on pretty fast in the movie is that Mickey Rourke and Eric Roberts play buddies in New York, and they work at a restaurant.
Yeah.
And the book starts with Mickey Rourke remembering a conversation we see at some point in the movie, maybe not at the very beginning, with Daryl Hannah while he's working in the restaurant. And that was all I got on the first page. 70s were a big time for crime novels. After the popularity of the Western novel, the crime novel became very, very popular. And we see a lot of movies based on this kind of crime novel. Of what I'm imagining this is something in the vein of Coogan's Bluff or whatever, Coogan's Game. What is that? The movie that becomes, what was it a few years back? Killing Them Softly, or Friends of Eddie Coyle. These kind of Jackie Brown style kind of story, Elmore Leonard, or these gritty crime novels of the 70s. I've never really read any of them.
When did James Ellroy start?
Ooh, I don't know. Good question.
He could be from that period. There's a few guys. Jim Thompson, who you're a fan of.
Yeah, he would be older, much older.
Okay.
James Ellroy might still be alive.
He is alive.
Okay. Yeah, Jim Thompson's long dead.
So Vincent Patrick, who wrote the novel, adapted
and the screenplay, yes.
He adapted it, and let's go back to the story a little bit. So we have Mickey Rourke plays Charlie.
Charlie, yes.
Who is he's a maitre d' when we first meet him.
Yes.
At a restaurant.
Looks like a nice restaurant.
Yeah, and he's a rascal and a hustler, and he loves cigarettes.
Yes, and he works with his buddy.
He works with his buddy, Paulie.
Yes.
Who we kind of learn, and I was going to ask you this, we learn eventually that they're cousins. Did you pick up on that?
Initially, I'm not sure that I did. Not in the same way that I picked up on a cousin's relationship in a very similar relationship movie that gets brought up in every talk about this movie. No one can resist bringing up Mean Streets.
Right.
And it was much clearer to me in that they were cousins, until at some point in this movie it does become clear they're cousins. You're right. But it wasn't clear to me, I guess. No.
Well, the first time that I picked up on it is much later, but I feel like the way it's mentioned, when I heard it, it had to have been brought up earlier, and it just was so subtle I missed it.
Same.
So these guys are cousins, and Paulie is a waiter.
But they're not even first cousins. They're like sixth cousins or something.
Yes, but they're Italian cousins.
Yes.
Which means they're more like brothers.
They're closer than twins to the Irish or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like being twins to the Irish.
As said by Burt Young, I think.
Maybe, good question, maybe one of the cops. You said that Eric Roberts plays Paulie, but who do you think is the more famous Paulie, Eric Roberts or Burt Young?
Yeah, definitely Burt.
Happy birthday, Paulie.
Burt Young is someone I never really thought about, but he's, been a presence in my life since I was a kid, watching all those Rocky movies.
Sure.
And I kind of liked him in this as a mafia guy.
Yes, and he always plays a very slovenly character in the movies. You never see Burt Young as a really slick guy. He plays kind of a slovenly gangster in this. You almost imagine a gangster in another part of town talking about him as that fat bastard is a filthy son of a bitch or something, he disgusts me when he eats and stuff. He's always shoving pasta in his face in this.
Yeah, he doesn't have to be sweaty in everything that he's in.
No, but
he is.
He is. You think about him. I think about him in Chinatown as the mechanic-y, or the guy that can't pay Nicholson in the beginning, then ends up doing him a solid at the end.
I forgot he was even in it.
But yeah, he always does seem to be a very sweaty, dyspeptic kind of guy. Yeah. Sorry, back to the restaurant. Now in this restaurant scene, Charlie takes Paulie aside. Mickey Rourke takes his buddy Eric Roberts aside. This is where we learn that Eric Roberts is maybe not the most on-the-ball guy, because Mickey Rourke takes him to task about running an obvious scam, and he breaks down what the scam is, about not charging people for enough entrees, giving people free food to try to boost your tips, basically.
Right.
And how did you feel about this scene?
I knew that you would love it because you love scams.
This was probably my favorite scene of the film. We'll get to stuff I liked later, but this, I thought, and part of my weird guess is that there's more of this kind of thing in the movie, but I'll get to that later. But I loved this little scam thing. Yes, it felt like a real scam. It felt like the movie knew what it was talking about. I've worked at restaurants, worked at bars, and it felt real, and it felt like a scam you would definitely get busted for pretty fast, unless of course the maitre d' might be on your side helping you, which leads us to the next scene where they get fired.
Well, just a second. As a waiter, had you ever heard of this before?
Well, of course, there are all kinds of different scams. This scam seems like it would be too obvious to really get by buy at a restaurant, to have tickets go into a kitchen and get made and then not be rung up. It's so obvious, and it's our first clue if we know restaurant stuff. It's such an obvious scam that they would obviously be busted. You'd have to have a cook in on it, maybe the whole kitchen staff, and you'd have to be running some kind of weird double tickets and stuff. It's a scam that, I mean, the kind of things you would see are people getting things not rung up or taking an extra item out and then crying later saying, oh, I didn't know that was mine. You know, I don't know. This kind of scam is too obvious. I don't think I would see this. I've never seen this kind of scam run. No.
So there's
always
some clams.
There's always too much of there's never enough of a bone the boss attitude at any place I've worked at to have them do this. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But there are some clams that go missing from the kitchen. Remember this?
Not exactly. No. Go for it.
Well, I'm thinking now he took the clams and took them to the table. You know,
very likely,
and that's the part of his scam is like, hey, here's some, you know, complimentary clams. So yeah, and the next scene that you were getting to, the head chef comes out, remember, and he gives Mickey Rourke some hell, and then he goes up to Roberts and he says, "And you son of a bitch, I know you stole my clams." And Eric Roberts just laughs at him and blows like cigarette smoke in his face.
And immediately with Roberts, the point of this podcast, of course, our hero Eric Roberts, we see, what do you think about his look and his attitude from the moment we meet him?
I just love him, and I feel like he just crackles with energy in this.
Oh, he sure does.
I feel
he's
like
at
his
about
instincts...
the 11 of energy the whole time on this movie, but immediately when he comes out, you're like, holy smokes, this guy is off the rails energetic.
I was thinking that, you know, if we're going to keep talking about his performances, that we're going to need to have a Roberts energy rating.
Oh, yes.
You know, something on the Roberts scale.
I'm going to, spoiler alert, he, in almost anything I've seen him in, his energy is going to be around a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, he goes hard.
And this one, too, I think most things you see that look back at the film bring up, it looks like he's got a perm going here.
Yeah, first thing I noticed.
And that makes this... Two things. First off, do you remember a time when you were a kid that perms were popular for men?
I do, and I was thinking about that when I was watching this.
Me too, but it was much later. I remember it closer to 1990.
Yeah, later 80s for us, where we grew up. And I think it was a big country music influence. A lot of the country music singers from the 80s, people like Ricky Skaggs and Keith Whitley, all had these perms.
Well, you know what's big right now with the kids, with the male kids? Perms.
Really?
Yes, the big hot hairstyle for males that are kids right now is to have their hair shaved close up on the sides. Their hair's like shaved on the sides and back. They only have the hair on top.
Yeah.
But it's permed on top, and then it falls down in their face or just kind of kicks around in a perm on top of their head.
I have seen this.
Yes, when I got my hair cut in August, a boy was having it done, and the lady pointed it out, and after that, I've noticed that that is the hairstyle that every boy has right now. And it's I actually don't think it's that bad of a hairstyle, honestly. I would never get a perm myself, but as far as how the cut looks, I mean, I've seen the kids wear worse looking haircut.
Well, the perm technology must be much better now too, because when I've seen it now that you mention it, but I just assumed these are people with naturally curly hair. So I'm thinking, I'm just seeing a lot more people with frizzy hair, I guess. But yeah, I'm seeing it with the fade on the back and the sides. Almost sometimes when it's longer, it's a little bit of a Sideshow Bob haircut.
It is. And I think that maybe part of this is an odd thing to say, but just thinking about it, it's an odd style that both black and white kids can wear.
Yeah.
And I think that might be maybe part of the genesis of it in some way. Is another way of the white kid could emulate the black kid, but maybe not. But anyway, I don't think it's that bad of a haircut for the kids.
Yeah.
And so you don't get... I'm going to put my foginess rating pretty low on this. I don't like the way Eric Roberts' hair looked.
Oh, you didn't like it?
No, I like the way the kids look now, but Roberts' hair, no, I didn't much care for it. I liked Mickey Rourke's hair more, probably.
Oh, I hated Mickey Rourke's hair. Bothered the hell out of me. But so the Eric Roberts hair in his side profile, did he remind you of any historical figures?
Ooh, good question. I could definitely. I would like to hear who you have here because he does cut some kind of a stony figure here.
Well, I instantly thought of Michelangelo's David when I saw him.
Oh, you are 100% correct. That is a good call.
Or a Caesar, as a Caesar statue of some kind with that curly hair, and he also has a Roman nose.
Yes, he does. He does have a Roman nose, which is probably how a guy from Mississippi gets cast. This is a funny movie where Rourke is from Florida and Roberts is from Mississippi. And I don't think Roberts' New York accent is that great. Rourke's is fantastic. But to me, who's never set foot in New York except for a drive-through. But yeah, you're right. He does look like Michelangelo's David. I've been thinking about Michelangelo just a little because I just finished reading all of the writings of William Blake, and he was a huge fan of Michelangelo, and then I was just looking at that God and Adam touching fingers almost up there, on the Sistine Chapel thing, and boy, what a gorgeous. Hey, I don't know if you've heard of this, but it's not bad looking.
Yeah, I've heard a thing or two about it. Never been there.
No.
Never been to Italy.
No.
Never been to Biloxi, Mississippi.
I have.
You have?
I've been to Biloxi, Mississippi.
Yeah.
And I've swim in the Gulf of Mexico there. That was my first time in the ocean. I spent a few days in Biloxi. My dad was on a business trip and he paid extra, and we, the family, went along, and we went on a long trip that time, maybe over a week, and we went to the south and we went to Nolens at last. And Biloxi really got overshadowed by New Orleans. My biggest memories of Biloxi are, that we went in the ocean and they had some kind of hurricane museum there, and I met a girl in the hotel arcade and we played video games together all day, and those are my biggest memories of Biloxi, Mississippi.
Well, that's where our guy hails from.
And his younger sister.
And his younger sister, Julia.
Okay, so they get fired. What's our next thing that happens?
Well, they get fired and they're unemployed, and what happens next? Charlie, right, goes home.
Okay.
We meet the girlfriend.
And also, let's point out, he has the Mickey Rourke played a boxer and homeboy, and has had many future bouts in the ring. And he has the boxing bag. He has the heavy bag here in his apartment. Which, he's a maitre d' at a nice restaurant. He has all these scams going and stuff. But do you get the feeling that he's a guy with dough?
Yeah, because of his wardrobe, but also because of the size of the apartment.
I feel like his apartment's way too big. I feel like he's a guy without dough who spends all his dough. Remember, you had an idea for a character who spends all his money on nice clothes?
Yeah.
I kind of feel like that's Mickey Rourke in this movie to some degree, but he's got this awesome apartment.
Yeah, he lives outside of his means, and it's never clear. I mean, I don't think Daryl Hannah lives with him.
No, I don't. I think she lives somewhere nicer.
And see, I thought that the boxing bag was hers, because the only time it's ever used is when she's punching it. There's a scene where she has the gloves on and she's punching
it. Right.
So yeah, I don't know how he affords to live in that place.
Yeah, it seems rough in New York City on a maitre d's salary even to have a place that nice, but I don't know.
Yeah, and he's paying child support. You find out that he has an ex-wife and a child.
Oh, whoa. That's crazy, because that'll bring up something later on when we talk about what ifs with this movie and things and casting things and stuff. But okay, that's interesting because I'd forgotten even that. Watching this the other night, my mind wandered many times.
Don't worry, you're gonna have to fill in some gaps for me.
Okay, you're doing really well here. Okay, I'm impressed. Keep going. Okay, so he has a kid. I didn't even remember that, and he's divorced. That makes this movie's starting to make a lot more sense to me. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
And
you never see the kid. There is mention of a car, and his ex-wife or his ex-girlfriend, his baby mama, has a car in his name, and she keeps getting tickets for it. And so you find out that he owes like $2,000 in tickets, and that she probably has some family members that are in organized crime because he's afraid to go and take the car from her or make any fuss about it. So he's kind of up against the wall with that.
That's really good, actually.
Yeah.
All of that sounds very plausible for that character.
Yeah, is it plausible that he would be with Daryl Hannah's character?
I feel like the Mickey Rourke character, he's such a handsome guy, and he's so vain, and so into being cool and soft. I feel like he can get just about any girl. at the
Yeah, he's
age
a
he's at
charmer.
right now. So it's like you could put him with a girl who looks like anything, and I would believe it. Yeah, it's like I definitely don't think Daryl Hannah's out of Mickey Rourke's league. No.
You know, I never really had any kind of feelings about Daryl Hannah. I mean, I always liked her as an actress. She never bothered me, but she's really pretty in this.
This is a big year for her because she was also in Splash in the same year.
Yeah.
And it was also a big year for her knockoff, Laurie Singer, who was in Footloose this year. Do you remember Laurie Singer?
Laurie Singer? No.
She is the lady who, I don't know her from much. I was watching a movie called Sunset Grill starring our friend Peter Weller, friend of the show, Peter Weller. And she was his love interest in this movie, and she was trying to be seductive. And I don't find either her or Hannah to be that attractive, though I would say Hannah more. But they look very similar to me. She is the lady that plays the cello and commits suicide in Shortcuts.
Yeah, I'm looking at her right now. And,
I always think she looks like Daryl Hannah to me.
I was never a big Footloose fan.
Me, I've only seen it once. It was years and years later.
Yeah, I never cared about. I didn't like the song either, but I know this actress. Yeah.
You didn't like the song? Wow. What about the other song? Let's Hear It for the Boy.
Love that song.
Okay, fair enough. I prefer the Let's Hear It for the Boy song, but I also liked Footloose. Okay, so did you feel like she was out of his league? And you thought she was really hot in this movie? She didn't really do it for me that much in this movie. She's always, the 80s specialize in a very androgynous look for women. I think in a lot of the movies, there's a lot of strong jaws and things, and that is to say, I do feel like Daryl Hannah has a masculine look, but that doesn't always bother me. Like we were talking about, I think Sean Young has a masculine look, but I love Sean Young as far as finding her attractive. I think Daryl Hannah's a stronger actor, but I think
a lot of severe lines on the ladies in the 1980s.
Yes, but Hannah's not my fave now.
She's not my fave. I really like her voice. She has a really nice, soft voice.
True.
You know, I always liked her characters. I liked her in Rock. I was a big Roxanne fan when I was a kid, and she's sweet in that. She's good at playing a sweet person. Yeah, I don't know. She kind of stuck out.
She has a lot of range as an actor, really. She can play tough and she can play vulnerable as well.
Yeah, you think about her in Blade Runner.
She can play warm and she can play cold. You know, think about Kill Bill. And even her characters in Kill Bill versus Blade Runner is two things that end up killing things, you know. But in the Blade Runner, she's supposed to be a pleasure bot. So they're very different characters, even within themselves, and both very different from what she's doing here.
Yeah.
Which is...
She does punch Mickey Rourke in the face.
Yes, I was going to say that he also in this sets his tone of not being the best winner at boxing.
No, that's right. And Mickey Rourke is very violent in this movie. He likes to throw things and hit things a lot.
They're not doing a lot for the Italian image in this. No.
Yeah. So he loses his job. He's talking to his girlfriend. I forget Daryl Hannah's character's name because I hate women and I can never remember their character's names.
I couldn't remember Polly's name. It's easy to remember Charlie because we'll get to no one. He says Charlie like 1,000 times in this movie.
Yeah, Charlie and Polly.
Yes, they both say each other's names a lot.
Yeah. Eric Roberts probably says Charlie in it at least. How many times would you guess?
Shoot, man, now I think we should count, but I don't want to. I'm going to guess he says it at least 40 times in the film, if not 60. 60 would be my guess.
It'd be cool to make an algorithm that you can run a movie through and it's listening for it and it'll tell you. You know?
I always just think things like that are impossible, then it turns out they exist.
Well, there's always a guy who will listen to a movie and write down how many times the F word is said.
Yes.
And then he'll say, you know, Pulp Fiction is like in the top 3, whatever. So, we have Charlie kind of trying to work things out, how he's going to make ends meet. And then we have it's funny, like you think there's going to be a struggling montage. And instantly it just goes to them playing baseball in the park or in a lot.
Oh, yes. No, they're not playing baseball. They are playing stickball.
Stickball, yeah. There's a distinction.
And I'd like to point out at this point in the movie, we've heard an instrumental version of New York, New York.
Yes.
We've heard Frank Sinatra.
Summer Wind.
And we've seen these guys playing stickball. Do you think this movie wants us to know it takes place in New York City?
Oh, man. It's pretty insistent.
Yes. I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
This movie's trying to be so New York.
When did pizza start to become a big cultural thing?
That's an excellent question. We should maybe look that up right now while we're doing this.
You do You don't see pizza in this. You see
No,
pasta.
maybe not. Yeah, nobody's eating pizza in this.
There is a classic scene with a giant Italian sub.
We're coming up on that, right?
Yeah, we don't want to go there quite yet.
Mhm.
We're almost there.
It's probably one of the most memorable things. Yeah, but the stickball scene was cracking me up in that it was just trying so hard to show us them having fun, really giving us jack shit.
Yeah.
Like this movie is all over the map, but I feel like this is one of the times that, and like a lot of times in the movie was really trying to sell us on these guys, like what they like about their lifestyle and why Mickey Rourke doesn't just leave and go with Daryl Hannah.
I love that they're cousins because they're kind of tied to each other.
Identical cousins all the way.
Because it doesn't make sense that that Mickey Rourke would keep him around, I don't think.
You have your child. We're in a place where families aren't as big, but I don't know. Maybe not. It just seems like I'm not that close with most of my cousins, except for like one or two, really, to where I hang out with them all the time when I go back. But my childhood friends and stuff, it's like even if one of them didn't grow up to be that with it or something. I don't know. That's a good question. Would I continue to hang out with that person? I don't know. That's a good question. At the age these guys are and they've never moved away, it's very easy to believe they probably still would. It's not that crazy to me.
Yeah, I guess
Except for the fact that Paulie is such a mess up. He's so crazy that it's like he is just constantly ruining Mickey Rourke's life.
He's a ne'er-do-well.
And we're supposed to believe that he's fun enough that it balances out in some way for Rourke.
So this is where I'm going to need your help.
Okay.
So we see them playing some stickball, and then, unless I'm missing some stuff, then we go into this discussion of the racehorse.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So this is where we find out that Eric Roberts has put in money on this racehorse.
Yep.
And this would be the sandwich sequence.
Yeah, he's got some Italian meats, and he's got a huge loaf of bread, and he's tearing it apart and stuffing it with the
He puts some cheese
meat
in there, and he puts a ton of meat in this sandwich.
Insane amounts.
And I
the
think
way he's like ripping it out of the package.
Oh, I want to point out one thing that I think a lot of people looking back on the film at the stickball scene, they bring up Eric Roberts' tight pants. I didn't really even notice them, but I looking at things later, that seemed to be something a lot of people remark on, or that he has very tight pants.
He has the posterior of like a young woman.
Oh, nice.
I mean, I wasn't looking at it a lot, but it's there in the film.
I'll have to watch it again.
Thinking of the stickball scene, I'm pretty sure that would be the scene. There's a Vincent Gallo story. Of course, Vincent Gallo worked with Mickey Rourke in Buffalo 66.
Oh, yes. Very good Mickey Rourke role.
Yeah, way better than this movie.
Yeah, I agree. I enjoy it. I mean, Buffalo 66 maybe not my favorite movie, but I liked it more than this movie, and I enjoyed Mickey Rourke more in that movie.
Yeah, I enjoy his acting better in Buffalo.
Yeah.
But Vincent Gallo at the time was a nobody, kind of an artist living in New York City, and he used to play football with his buddies. But anyways, he said that he stumbled upon the shooting of this movie, and that Mickey Rourke and Eric Roberts came up and talked to him and stuff, and just to hear Vincent Gallo, he's like, you should have seen Eric Roberts. He was a effing beauty. He was a beauty in his time, and he is a beautiful man in this movie.
He's always, and that's, I think there's a thing where he talks about fitness or something even now. His dedication to, you're seeing two actors here who seem extremely, extremely vain. Some actors are beautiful and they don't seem that vain, but these guys, both of them come off as like they're constantly into how beautiful they are, and Eric Roberts has maintained that throughout his career. There's always an incredible dedication to his like physical fitness, and just a real sense of like Eric Roberts is proud of how he looks today. And I was reading there was an article or something about how many movies he does and things and stuff from, gosh, it may be over 10 years old now, or a few years old at least. And one of the things in it, he's in front of some mirrors, he's walking past some place in Beverly Hills with the writer, and he's like, oh, I remember Chris Walken and me preening in front of this mirror 25 years ago, or something like, in 1987 or something like that. It's like, yes, it's very easy to see you and Chris Walken admiring yourselves in a mirror. I believe this story happened.
Yeah, Rourke and Roberts are a couple peacocks
Oh yeah.
And
this
so,
is a sequence where this sequence too gets really wet, where they talk about this is where the movie for actors, I think, of this period and people who like this movie, this whole sequence where they talk about the racehorse, I think, is so much of the movie to them in a way, because it's where they really run for a long period of time acting out their version of being Harvey Keitel and Robert De Niro. And you can tell that they've just rehearsed this and they're having so much fun. They're having more fun doing this scene by far than I'm having watching it. And I feel like they pump themselves up behind the scenes. They're all so into each other in this, and they're like, Roberts is so energetic, and Rourke is so soft-spoken and brandoed out and whispery in the movie, and you can just be like, yeah, I'm fire and you're ice, man, and we do that, and they're like they think they are the team of the century, and they're really getting to do it in a way.
You feel it, and
in a big movie too. It's like, and they are just juiced on each other and themselves in this, and they are going.
They're swinging for the fences.
Yes, later when I think it's maybe a Golden Globe, I forget what he wins, but later Mickey Rourke famously says Eric Roberts is the effing man. He doesn't know why Eric Roberts doesn't get roles in an acceptance speech for the wrestler, and I believe, you can just see these two guys like they had the keys to the candy store and they ran with it right here.
Yeah, well, you and I acted together in a couple. We've acted together in a lot of stuff.
Yes,
we acted together in a couple things where we had to play pretty much just having a good time together.
Yeah.
And trying to get that across, trying to communicate that. It's weird because we've hung out so much and had so many like good times naturally, but when you're trying to amp that up for the camera, it's funny.
Yeah, and a lot of it's in the directing, and we'll get to that, I guess, after the picture. We talk about the what ifs and stuff, but we didn't mention this film is directed by, oh gosh, all of a sudden I can't remember the guy's name, Stuart Rosenberg, who is famous. His most famous film is Cool Hand Luke, and he made tons of movies, and I think was probably put on this picture, as we know he wasn't, we'll get to this later, but he wasn't the original choice to direct this movie, and I'm thinking he gets put on last minute as just an old steady hand who has experience in masculine pictures. He has all experience in all kinds of pictures, really, but he's done his fair share of men's movies, and this is, I guess, a young, kind of it's a men's movie. Let's face it.
Yeah, it's a bro film.
Yes,
and there is a lot of affection too between these guys, but this Mickey Rourke likes to kiss him a lot.
Yes, there's a total. It's interesting. Let's talk about it now. This was supposed to be a Michael Cimino movie.
Yes.
This was his get well movie, maybe after the failure of Heaven's Gate. And it was supposed to star Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. I cannot find who was supposed to be which role. I'm guessing De Niro was going to be Mickey Rourke because he'd already played Johnny Boy, and Al Pacino was going to be Charlie, is my imagination. And this is, I think, a much, much different movie than what we get.
Yeah.
Because in this movie, maybe the only thing likable about these characters is that they are young and they don't quite see the trap they're in, and they're still trying to make moves and get out, or not get out, but just get ahead. They're still trying. They're not trapped yet, or they're not quite sad in a really pathetic way. Mm-hmm. And I think that if this is a De Niro Pacino movie, they have to be made older and trapped and be looking for this score later just to get out in some way. And I don't know what the novel is like exactly, but I'm guessing it's a much higher budget movie, a lot more extras. I think we see more crazy scams and things, or maybe not. I just want to see more scams. But I think that I think the characters are meant to be older. It makes the kid and the divorce, make a lot of sense. Although I definitely believe Mickey Rourke is a guy who would have a kid at this age, even if you make his character like, say, 23 or something. It's very easy to see him having a kid.
De Niro and Pacino would have been in their mid-30s, I guess, at this point.
Yeah, but they just think about the movies they've already done at this point. It's hard to see them in these roles.
Already feel middle-aged.
Yeah,
just because you've seen them.
Yeah,
if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it's very hard to see them as two guys that are on the up and never make it to the top by the end of the movie even, you know?
Yes.
It's hard to see them as two ne'er-do-wells after, even though they've already done it. Like Pacino's already done Scarecrow with Gene Hackman, and Charlie, if I'm looking at, I kind of feel like in some way Eric Roberts is kind of doing Pacino as much, and doing Pacino in Dog Day Afternoon. In some weird way. And
the soft Pacino. Yeah, soft Pacino voice. I always get Brando from Rourke.
No, that's what I'm saying. Rourke's doing Brando, but I think Roberts is doing Pacino.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, in some way.
That's interesting.
But it's James Dean, Montgomery Clift, Pacino.
Yeah. I didn't think who I would have compared his acting predecessors to.
I was definitely thinking about James Dean. You're tearing me apart. They took my thumbs, Charlie.
He's just so high energy. Like who from the generation before, or the generation before the generation, I don't know who you would compare him.
Nicholson gets pretty animated. It usually feels pretty, I don't know, naturalistic is pretty crazy, but he gets pretty animated. I don't know.
Nicholson's the whole thing is angst.
Yes, what is Robert Town says Nicholson has a great capacity for being indignant.
Yes, yeah, he is good at that.
And that's what, like he said, when he did Last Detail and Chinatown, he used his friendship with Nicholson and knowing that in writing those.
Let's see, I don't remember much of Star 80, so I don't know how naive Eric Roberts' character or his energy is in that. But
I would compare Eric Roberts' character in Star 80 to very much to James Woods' character in Casino.
Okay, sleazy.
Very sleazy. He plays an insecure pimp, more or less.
Well, he's very naive in The Pope of Greenwich Village.
Yes.
Which
yes,
is always fun. I love these characters like this. He
well,
has a little bit of the Bill
sorry,
Blazejowski.
Yes, that I definitely thought of. That was one of the movies I was thinking about after I watched the movie. I thought of that movie.
Night Shift.
Yeah, maybe it's just time to do this. What are the movies that this reminds you of? I've got a whole list here of what is this the Mean Streets, two friends with a little bit of larceny or something, one more responsible, one less responsible. The less responsible one always gets the more responsible one in trouble. I really couldn't find a movie with this that's exactly like this before Mean Streets in America or anywhere really. It's like this definitely feels like even the novel I haven't read might have been riffing on Mean Streets, inspired by. But what do you have? What do you think? What are some movies you can remember?
It's not exactly that formula, but I thought about Midnight Cowboy. And there's some ratso, I feel, in Eric Roberts' character.
I did not think of that. So I think of those guys as like, not, they're two losers who kind of are bad for each other and need each other or something. They're not like buddies. It's slightly different. That's an interesting call.
It's a different relationship, but there's a scene, there's an I'm walking here scene in The Pope of Greenwich Village.
Oh, you're right.
But it's much cooler. It's Mickey Rourke just putting his hand out at a nice car, and it stops for them in the street as Rourke and Roberts are arm in arm crossing like they own the street. So that made me think of Midnight Cowboy.
Here are some list of movies that I've got here. Okay, so here are a couple that are kind of on the line, but another Mickey Rourke movie called Rumblefish. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't really see the connection.
I just feel like, you've got I guess you're kind of right. I just felt like the influence of one male over the other. You're right, it's not really the same. And then Night Shift, except for that really Bill Blazejowski is a ticket to Henry Winkler opening up a better part of his life. But he definitely has the motor mouth, full of bad ideas, high energy guy friend that's not very
rascal.
Yes, and I prefer Night Shift. Okay, here are some that I think are a lot like it. First of all, obviously Rounders. Worm is exactly a Johnny Boy, Charlie type, or Paulie rather. Then Bottle Rocket.
Oh yeah,
is
Dignan and Anthony
is a better version of Pope of Greenwich Village with the innocent friend, and We Own the Night,
and a heist also in
yes,
Rocket.
It's also a heist movie, right? Indian Runner, based on the song Highway Patrolman by Bruce Springsteen. It also kind of the Rourke and Roberts having too much fun kind of reminds reminded me of Fight Club and Edward Norton and Brad Pitt having more fun making the movie than me watching it, but not really the same.
Yeah.
Not really the same thing. Oh, on The Deuce, the TV show. There's a TV show called The Deuce where James Franco plays twin brothers, and it's a lot like one of them's the good brother and one of them's the one always messing up, and the good ones happen to carry the one who's always messing up. And let's see. That was pretty much it as far as ones that post-dated it that had it that off the top of my head. But I also thought, I tried to look into where did Mean Streets get the idea to do it. And so I investigated, I thought about American movies, and really the closest American movies that are older that I could think of, you brought up Midnight Cowboys older than Mean Streets, but to me, the feel of, or not the feel, but the closest friend relationship I could think of is maybe like The Roaring Twenties, which is of course a huge Scorsese influence, but it's not really that exact or prevalent in the movie until the third act. It kind of, the friends start the movie and then it becomes the big story in the second half of the film. But then I talked to one of our friends, a guy named Nick Hott, and asked him if there were any old or foreign movies he could think of, and he brought up a couple of ones I ended up watching that I really had to agree with. Well, the first one was Les Cousins by Claude Chabrol.
I've seen that one. Yes, that's a relationship.
Yes, it's very much like, it's even more like Bottle Rocket and Mean Streets than it is like Pope of Greenwich Village, but very much like Mean Street, where he's got the religious kind of thing going, where he kind of thinks of himself as kind of the guy's savior in a way, and it pumps himself up in a way, you know, and it feeds off each other, and the other guy doesn't kind of like being looked on like that. And then Nick also brought up Les Cousins. Oh no, I meant Les Cousins was not it exactly. Les Beaux Serge is exactly Mean Street, the first Claude Chabrol movie, predating Les Cousins. But both of those,
I've seen both, but I get them mixed up.
In Les
the
Cousins
ones is like a Country Mouse, City Mouse
yes.
story.
And it's fairly similar too, in a way. It's two friends. It's like, yeah, one friend is kind of the Mr. Poor Body, but it's not as close as Les Beaux Serge is like a guy returns to his hometown, and he has another friend that also wanted to leave his hometown but didn't get out and knocked a girl up.
Well, I would say Evie Deloney by Fellini.
Yes, the feel of the Evie Deloney for sure, and then Axatone by Pasolini.
Yeah, I never saw Axatone.
And Rocco and His Brothers, but especially Evie Deloney and Axatone for sure. Those were the feel of the movie. But I don't feel like there's any direct predecessor of Mean Streets. I feel like he kind of took all those things and meshed them, not in the same way that it feels like Pope of Greenwich Village just loves Mean Streets.
You wonder if Kerouac and the Dean Moriarty archetype doesn't have like a massive influence on a lot of stuff.
Ah, interesting.
And I know there's probably predecessors to the Moriarty thing, but you know, just like the guy who's destined to flame out because has too much energy and he's too much of a schemer, and then you have the more level-headed, what's his name, Sal Paradise character in On the Road. I feel like that relationship has been in a ton of stuff, and it's kind of exactly what you're describing.
That's true. What about yeah.
Less crime, but you know, the relationships.
Sure, you're right. And
I've had friendships like that with characters that are a little bit larger than life.
Yeah, sometimes people, they've got too much and they don't have perspective to see, and nobody does really. You can't see yourself from the outside.
But thinking and talking about this, and I'm sure anybody that would listen to this has already seen the movie.
Yes,
so it's okay to spoil it.
Oh, of course. We're going to, yeah.
You know, I don't know if I'd ever seen the whole movie. And if there's a lot of movies that I saw in my 20s that I don't really remember at all.
I'm trying to think if you and I saw this together the first time that I saw it. Which would be
I feel there were a lot of movies that you and I experienced together that were just on.
Yes.
We didn't necessarily finish.
Yeah.
If
somebody fall asleep or we talk through parts of them.
Yeah. So, you know, I was expecting this movie to be more tragic. I was kind of waiting for something.
What's funny is I've seen the movie and I felt like the ending was going to be more downbeat too.
Yep.
I didn't remember the movie correctly.
Yeah, it does kind of throw you. I mean, they're not necessarily in the clear at the end.
Okay, so we've gotten way off track of the plot. No, I would think, I mean, we'll get there. But okay, back to the plot. So Eric Roberts has gone in with some guys on a horse, and we immediately, already from knowing Eric Roberts and having seen a sitcom or comedy in the last 100 years, that horse is for sure never going to win.
Yeah. What's his line? Artificial inspiration?
Yes.
Artificial inspiration, Charlie.
Jeez, that did.
Yeah.
That got a groan from me, that's for sure.
Yeah, what do you call that? A malapropism?
Yes, right. Yeah.
Not great. And then he has
Not
to say it
great.
like 3 times. You know, it's like you could maybe sneak it in there once, but I mean, they really wanted that joke to go over.
Oh boy, did they. And I wanted and the sandwich thing. You can tell that this whole huge sandwich thing is like a thing that Rourke and Roberts have worked out together, I'm sure. That they think it's
Yeah.
hysterical. But I just kept watching, and I wanted to ask you if you noticed, does he ever put condiments on the sandwich that we see?
There's a bottle of mustard, but I never see him spread it on it.
Me neither. We see so much of that sandwich. Is the bottle open? I feel like it maybe was. I was meant to go back and look, but I didn't. Maybe somebody, if somebody hears this and comments on it on this podcast, please let us know if you think Paulie puts any condiments on that sandwich, or if it's just some cheese and a ton of meat.
So Roy,
Which also goes in with his greediness.
Yeah.
Right? We've been told he's greedy.
more. How do you
Yes.
like me? How do you like me?
Mm-hmm. How do you like it?
You are a vegetarian.
Yes, I do consume meat once in a while, but not day in, day out, no.
So when you see it like this, and you know, I love to see food in movies, and I always have a big response to it, and I wonder how you react to that, like when you see like all that Italian capicola and salami and stuff.
Well, my decision to become a vegetarian was probably formed over many years. I've kind of feeling to varying degrees that I didn't feel like it was very nice to murder as many animals as we do. But what really sealed it was one night late at night, I was watching a movie and a guy was eating surf and turf, and all of a sudden I got kind of incensed that the guy had killed 2 animals just to seem fancy or murder. I thought of it as like, this guy's committed 2 murders just to show off for his friends. And then I was like, that's pretty obscene. And I was thinking, well, boy, how many meals do I eat more than one meat at and things? And how many times do I unnecessarily kill things? And that's really that day was really when I stopped eating meat so much.
Oh, so when you see it now.
But when I see it now, what I think is that looks delicious, unless it looks gross. Yeah, it's like now seeing meat, like when I'm at the store and I pass the uncooked steaks, oh my God, it's like they're calling to me. Oh my gosh, it's like they're calling to me, these steaks, and I want them so badly. Like it's like the redder the meat, almost the more tasty it looks to me.
Well, the sandwich looks delicious, and it's one of my
pretty
favorite parts of the movie. And it is, like you said, you're sure they worked it out, and to a degree, it is hilarious the amount that he's stuffing into it. It is distracting.
Yeah, it feels like it is distracting, yes. But all they're talking about is that horse, and so you feel like I guess they needed some funny business, and that's what it became, was just make this crazy sandwich.
And they're drinking some kind of weird soda. I don't know what
I
that
missed
is.
that. I was so obsessed with the soda.
It's a tiny bottle of something. It might be sangria in a bottle. I've seen it like that before.
Oh yeah, and they've got the
maybe they got
non-alcoholic sangria like that too.
Yeah. But in order to pay for the horse, right, he needs the money.
Okay.
Am I remembering this right?
This is where what the money and all this all like gets confusing to me.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Because
like the exact
I spaced out here too.
Yes, I started looking at the sandwich and what exactly the whole thing is with the cash and all this in the horse. This is not the point where we get introduced to the idea of the robbery, is it, or is it?
No, it comes later.
Okay.
I feel like there's another scene with Daryl Hannah.
Yeah,
and
we get attention, right? This is at some point in this area is where we have the thing where she says, "Why don't you move uptown with me?" And he's like, "What if I don't want to change?" or something like that, right?
And there's mention of some kind of baby fever.
And I feel like that's the tension of the movie, in theory, or maybe the book, is that the lead, of course, is Charlie. Although you listed Eric Roberts first, Mickey Rourke is the lead. Although it becomes kind of a co-leads thing because Eric Roberts is in the movie so much. But it's Mickey Rourke's story, and he's a guy that's at an age, like I feel like in this movie, like Anthony in Bottle Rocket, and he's starting to feel like maybe it's a trap, but he feels like maybe not to be in it is to be dead in some way. It's like a lot of the way, like I feel like women equate, and maybe men too, people equate marriage with death, and like or something, like it's like the end. And it's like, to him, I think he's maybe like The Graduate or somebody, not quite wanting to give up the ways of childhood. He kind of wants to be a man-child an extra minute and have scrapes and some fun. But it's a
Yeah, yeah,
push-pull
the
because he's also
crime
kind of
is.
a worker. Yeah, yeah. It's like he's also works hard.
Well, he also
He's kind of
mentions
a
too
go-getter.
that there's also the scene with Daryl Hannah where he mentions that an honest living meant that you just had a shit job.
Yes, and he has all that
You know,
vitality of youth. We like our Harold Bloom, and we talk, and he has that when vitality turns into vitalism. And this is the difference in the two movies, I think, too, is that the movie with Roberts and Rourke, they're vital, but in the movie with De Niro and Pacino, even at that young age, after playing young Vito Corleone and Michael Corleone, it would feel like they're more like John Falstaff or something.
interesting.
They would feel pathetic in a way. It would already feel like Pacino was his character in Donnie Brasco,
Yeah, the vitality's drained to a degree.
or just that they're rats in a maze at this point.
I would
Yeah.
also like to point out that the scene after the horse discussion, when he's back in the apartment with Daryl Hannah and there's this pressure that's put on him to make more of a commitment, he throws not one but 3 beer bottles in this scene. Like the first one he kind of chucks, it's empty, the first one he kind of chucks it towards the trash can.
Stella.
And then he manages to throw 2 more, the last one being shattering and him being like, "Get off my back." So, man, that Rourke, he chews some scenery.
Oh yes, it's like he has the whispery voice, but he acts up a storm. You say you didn't like him in the movie, and you liked Roberts much more. I found their performances interesting in that I felt like Mickey Rourke's performance made sense for his character in a real world in a way, but didn't help sell the movie.
His scenes with Daryl Hannah are the ones that really bother me the most.
Kind of all of it. Like he's so cool that it should be the story of a guy who's hanging on too long by hanging out with Mickey Rourke because Mickey Rourke's so cool. It's like, in some way, it's like, but it's not a bad choice by him. There's just something in the movie where he's not quite doing it for me as a guy I'm rooting for at any point or really give a fuck about or even really understand that he's enjoying his life that much or hanging out with Paulie that much. It's like, to me, it seems like he almost plays it like a guy who would rather just leave with Daryl Hannah. And yeah, it was just strange. And
yeah, there's not that tension of him wanting to hang on to the, like you said, the rascally times.
And I feel like that's what the movie kind of should be about in some way, because he says that in that scene with Daryl Hannah, and it's the age these guys are at, is the age where you start to wonder, are people leaving me behind? Am I missing out on a bigger world? Well, my friends and things are getting, are doing things, but he comes from the smaller world, but he has the girlfriend from the bigger world. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I felt like there was a weird thing with his character could have been done better. Both parts I felt like could have been better cast. I didn't like Eric Roberts in the movie. I felt like the same way I feel about James Dean, that his emoting is annoying. However, what I did believe is that in a lot of movies, people don't play the stakes, as they say, as Alec Baldwin is fond of saying. If you like acting, and I don't think anybody is more articulate about the job of acting and analyzing actors than Alec Baldwin. And on YouTube, you can watch on GQ, he talks about Royal Tenenbaums. He talks about Gene Hackman and how for years Gene Hackman didn't play the stakes in movies he was in. Like he'd be the president and there'd be some bomb or something and he'd be like, well, we'll see about that. Instead of playing it like, oh God, we'll see about that, or something like all like intense or something, he'd kind of laugh off everything no matter what. And that in Royal Tenenbaums, he actually does play things with intensity. It's like in the movies, and in old movies especially, people a lot of times are just way too relaxed about things. Like and Eric Roberts, in this movie, the way he emotes, a real person in real life would probably emote a lot. However, it still annoys me in this movie. I did not like it in the movie.
Yeah, the playing the stakes thing, it makes me think of Charlton Heston in Soylent Green.
Yes.
As played by Phil Hartman in the SNL sketch. Soylent Green is people.
Yes.
It's made out of people.
Yeah, like so the early performances of Paul Newman are kind of like that. And yeah, it's not my favorite, but some I mean, maybe it's just there's something feels showy, like put on.
I didn't really like the first act at all.
Oh, I didn't either, except for the part in the restaurant.
Yeah, so this next scene, I guess, would be when the the plan comes into the story.
Okay.
The heist.
Yeah.
And the safe cracker. To me, that's when things started to get fun. Things started to kind of take shape for me because, yeah, like you said, it's a lot of them trying to have fun and convey it, and it doesn't convey.
It doesn't convey, but you're right. At this point, when they introduce that there's going to be a robbery, you're kind of like, thank goodness.
Yes.
Right? That this movie's found a plot. Because this might be fun now that we have a plot. We've actually got something going here. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like, I was really happy to see this introduced, this idea of this heist.
And honestly, when you give these guys something to do, I start to like them more, and I start to like the performances more.
Ooh, interesting point. I didn't even think about that.
You know, Roberts, he bothered me as he did you. I mean, I was taken by his energy for sure, and thought it was like funny and everything, and was impressed by it. But as the movie progressed and the story progressed, and I got to know the characters more, I don't know, I just warmed up to his acting style more, I guess. The accent started to bother me less.
As soon as this heist is introduced, from what we've already heard from Paulie, it's another point in this movie where, in a real life situation, if we've known Paulie as long as Mickey Rourke, Charlie has known Paulie, do we already know we should never go on this heist? Would you ever in a million years go on a heist planned by Paulie?
Yeah, no.
No, I don't think Mickey Rourke's character would either. That's one thing I didn't buy. I was like, he wouldn't do this.
Yeah, he's not convincing.
He would have tried to convince Roberts not to do it and been like, I'll be at a club over here. If you want to hang out Friday night, you come there. If not, I don't want to know what you're doing that night. We'll see each other later.
Yeah, it should have been Rourke somehow, should have been the one.
Yeah, this movie's such a drag, because it's like, it is one of those movies about hopeless, pathetic people. And really, one thing helping it, like I said before to me, is that they are a little younger, the main guys, because it makes their naivete slightly less sad to me than if they're older. But yeah, we know from the start this is probably not going to work. Although if it had been De Niro and Pacino, maybe we have more faith that those guys could turn it around.
Yeah.
But as far as work, almost anybody a little more sympathetic and a little less aloof, like Keitel, obviously, but even though he's very cool, Christopher Walken or somebody. Although I think Walken even at this point might have been too far beyond this role, but maybe not.
So Paulie finds out about this safe that's in this building,
mm-hmm.
and that it's vulnerable and that there's stuff in it. And so he gets hooked up with this safe cracker that he introduces to Mickey Rourke.
Side plot, have we already been introduced to the cop?
The cop shows up in the bar where they meet the safe cracker.
Okay.
Well, now, which cop are you talking about? The cop with the mother?
Yes.
I think he's getting ready to show up.
Okay. That's the most important thing I wanted. Okay, go ahead. Okay, so they meet the safe cracker. What is the actor's name? I'm gonna look it up, because he's my favorite performance in the film.
Is it Kenneth McMillan?
Ooh, that sounds right. I feel bad not knowing. He died fairly young, but he didn't look like he was in the greatest physical condition.
Yeah. Okay. So the safe cracker's name is Barney, played by Kenneth McMillan, who was Baron Harkonnen in Dune.
Yes. And at one point we see him kiss the woman playing his wife, and I was thinking, boy, sad day for her if her only screen kiss ever was Baron Harkonnen. However, I thought the guy was amazing in this role, and he felt like a real guy. He felt sympathetic. I wanted good things for this character from the first moment I met him. And I just never wanted him to rat on them or anything, like I really wanted this guy to be a sweet guy. Yeah. I liked him from the moment I met him.
And he really sells that desperation. He needs this.
Now is this the scene where he mentions his why he needs the money?
Maybe that comes later.
Okay,
he mentions that he repairs clocks.
Oh yes, and he has that.
And that he did time because Mickey Rourke, Charlie presses him.
Yes.
And it comes out that he's like, yeah, I did some time. So he has a criminal background.
Yes.
But see, I don't even remember why he needs this.
Well, it has something to do. He needs a lot of money because he's old and he doesn't maybe have a lot. There's something where he has the 25-year-old son who is mentally challenged.
Oh, yes.
And this became a big thing to me in the movie with the wife and the mentally challenged son.
Do they show the son?
No. And that was one of my favorite things about the film that I wanted to talk about, is that it became immediately a tension with me because I already wasn't liking the movie. And I just kept thinking, is this movie going to show me the son or not? And I found myself really, really rooting for not. And
you don't want to see the safe crackers disabled.
No. I started thinking, does that that make me a bad person? Because I feel that I have an aversion to seeing the handicapped, mentally, like let's say a character with Down syndrome. I have an aversion to seeing that character in almost any setting in a film, whether played by a person with Down syndrome or not. And I started thinking about it, and I was like, no, it's not me that's the problem. I'm right. And I'll tell you why. Because these movies, to show him, they would just, they've got to cast the role of the guy who's drooling and sad and is the sad, mentally challenged guy to make you feel sad. And either way, that's a put down to people that I just don't feel like seeing or being a part of. And I want to thank this movie for not putting either real mentally challenged people or putting people to play that like through some process and stuff. To me, it's just kind of disgusting for the way this movie would have used it in this plot. Do we think if this was a Cimino film, we see the sun? That was one of my questions.
Well, I don't know if I've ever seen a mentally handicapped person in a Cimino film.
I don't think so either. I don't know. I was just thinking about this. What the
but he loves to show everything.
Yes.
He's a maximalist.
He is a maximalist. Yes. So I was just wondering if like maybe that was I don't know. Maybe in the book you never meet the character either. Reminded me Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, if the character is meant to be just a source of, you're supposed to feel empathy for the safecracker because his son is in this condition, then it is more dignified to not show it.
And he loves
it. Is a little bit of petting the dog or whatever they call that.
I don't know, but it was gross. Yeah, it would have been gross in my opinion. And I was really thankful. I give the movie some props on not showing me that son.
No, I tell you, anytime a retarded person is mentioned in a film and not shown, I think it's an act of compassion.
I've never seen that movie Cassavetes did about the mentally challenged children. I've seen sympathetic and non-offensive portrayals of mentally challenged kids in the movies and things for sure. Like it hasn't always been gross, but I have a real aversion to it. Starting with L.A. Law. As a child, I once saw an episode of L.A. Law, and Larry Drake made me cry for like an hour afterwards about the unfairness of life. And yeah.
I don't think I'd ever seen a person with Down syndrome. Maybe on like Life Goes On, but I think that came later.
Sure, but I think that was about the same time, maybe later than L.A. Law. But yeah, Corky on Life Goes On I found very disturbing.
I would have been younger, and this was probably more in the like 85, 86. My mother worked for a guy, and his son had Down syndrome, and there was a picture of the family in her office, and the guy just looked funny to me. I didn't know there was anything wrong with him, and I'm laughing at him, I'm laughing at him in front of the guy, in front of the father, so that was the first time, my first memory of being like really, really disciplined and reprimanded by my mom.
Wow. Yeah.
And I didn't know, but man, that really traumatized me in a way that like, I have a certain thing with people with mentally handicapped people. It makes me really sad.
Sure, me too. Yeah. Just all kinds of.
Most people probably do.
Absolutely. I love them, but of course they make me sad. So to have it put in my face, it's like those movies about people with disabilities that aren't mental. Also, I don't much care to see them, but the mental ones bother me more because in some way, like, it's not in real life. In real life, mentally challenged people don't bother me more than physically challenged. They don't bother me. Mentally challenged people don't bother me in real life. It's only in the movies.
I had texted you a couple months ago, and I just said, "What's the best R slur movie?" And your reply was Frankenstein. But it's true. I think that a lot of people's first sympathy for a mentally challenged character is probably Frankenstein. I saw Frankenstein when I was really young. I felt sorry for him.
Oh, sure. But what about, we had a lot when we were kids too. I guess I probably would have seen Frankenstein before Rain Man, for sure, I guess. But
Frankenstein in the Monster Squad, played by Tom Noonan, was especially sad.
Oh, wow. My memories of that are such that of course, as most children of that age, I do remember Monster Squad and watched it many times. But I don't really remember Tom Noonan even being Frankenstein. I just don't even really remember that he was Frankenstein.
He plays it super simpleton. He talks. He doesn't just growl like Karloff.
Both that and later, I guess, not based on classic novel at all, but the Wolfman's also a sad kind of story, but not in the same way we mean now.
Yeah. Well, in any case, we don't see the mentally challenged son.
Thank
but we
goodness.
know
We do
know
meet the
that
wife.
Barney. Yeah, we meet the wife. We know that Barney
Later.
needs some money. He's getting old and he's ready to retire. And he has
Which
to-
added to the suspense. Later on, when we actually go to the guy's house later, and the wife, we meet her. We just never meet the son. And so it was but that added to the suspense. It kept
You're
like,
thinking, oh, he's
yeah,
there.
yeah, he's just right behind that door. We're going to see him any second. That's exactly what I
getting
was
ready to come
thinking the
out.
whole time. It really distracted me during those scenes.
Oh man, that's funny. I had forgotten about it at that point.
Okay.
But yeah, so
loomed
they
large.
set up this plot. They're gonna infiltrate this building. They do some reconnaissance.
Reconnaissance.
And that's I guess supposed to be a fun little mini montage that doesn't really sell the fun.
No.
But then we meet this police officer who has been working with the mafia.
Yes. Played by Jack Kehoe.
Jack Kehoe, who I did not recognize.
I recognize him as he's from a long line of actors we know as John C. Reilly, Elisha Cook Jr. When you see him in these kind of dramas, he always plays either a naive guy or a weak guy or a coward. You know things are never... He's the pathetic character in all
he's
these
old Gil.
movies. He's old Gil to the max. In The Sting, he's the young guy that shows up and is all mousy. In Boxcar Bertha, he's the slick coward. In The Coward Gambler, in The Untouchables, he is the accountant that they need for the witness. And there's another one I'm trying to think from the 70s where he's a big weasel. Suddenly it's not coming to me. He plays a very weaselly type. That's kind of the big thing I remember him from, and it's not coming to me off.
So the police officer's name.
But he's another guy where as soon as you see him, you know, he's just like this whole movie where you're like, oh, he's not going to be a very with it officer. Things are going to go poorly for him.
I guess you could say he's an undercover cop.
Yes.
And he's been recording all of this audio of this mafia boss, played by Burt Young, who his character's name is Bedbug.
Yes, and this is another part where I got foggy, and it was almost like maybe the end of the movie before I realized that Bedbug was Burt Young.
Well, yes, he is played by Burt Young, and so we're not sure how this all ties together quite yet. But we see this scene with the cop, and he's getting some dirt on Bedbug Eddie, and then we see the heist. There's also a very weird long scene with the undercover cop at his home with his mother. He's also a guy who's trying to retire.
Yes.
So you see a reoccurring theme of guys trying to escape, like you said.
Yeah. Be trapped in the rat race of what city was it?
Trapped in the maze.
I can't remember.
The city of New Greenwich, Newfoundland.
Oh yes. Oh, here's a good question. Did you ever understand the title?
Yes. There's a scene where he says it.
Okay. I watched the movie and at the end was like, okay, I realized the movie that Greenwich Village is in New York City, and I don't understand what the Pope has anything to do with it.
Yeah. You see it. It's said.
Okay. My bad.
You ruined this whole episode.
Yes. Expert.
I told you to prepare. I said if you did anything for my birthday, would you please prepare?
I did everything but pay attention to the movie.
All you did was think about how mentally challenged people make you sad.
Yes. And then Jack Kehoe, trying to remember movies I'd seen of him.
So Jack Kehoe, he's going to factor in shortly. Okay?
Yeah, so we see him here with his mother, and his mother is played by the lauded actor Geraldine Page.
Yes.
Whom was highly, highly, highly respected, and in fact received a Best Supporting Actress nomination for this very movie at the Oscars.
I did not know that. I didn't know it was nominated for anything.
It was the film's only nomination, I believe. I thought in my memory the film I thought this before we just talked about this, and I asked for us to do this first because I thought this, in my mind, this is kind of the iconic or the vintage. This to me, this is the biggest cross section of Eric Roberts fans are probably fans of this film, and in my mind, or at least him in this film. And watching it, I in my memory, I thought he'd been nominated for an Oscar for it, but turns out he's not nominated till Runaway Train, and but with the next year, I think. But at any rate, how do you feel about her being nominated for an Oscar for this movie?
Kind of weird. She didn't register. I'll tell you what, though. The scene when we first meet her and she's smoking the unfilterless cigarettes, she coughs in that scene. And it's the greatest cinematic cough I think I've ever seen.
Wow,
it's a real cough.
I got to rewatch it. Quick aside, I remembered another example of a movie with this exact dynamic, maybe from the same year or the year before or something. The Falcon and the Snowman. Sean Penn is Polly and Timothy Hutton is Charlie, which also has in that one thing that's not in this that I kept thinking about with Polly being so energetic in the early 80s. Yeah. Where's the blow?
Well, you feel it. I thought we would talk way more about cocaine in this whole episode because I kind of feel like that was played a big part in the energy of the whole movie. I just feel like Eric Roberts is just cocaine incarnate in throughout the whole movie.
Yes,
and it's in that time period, and
yes, or any time period from then on when you see a guy like this. Yeah, it seems like Eric Roberts would be, but nobody talks about him being high. I feel like he snorts some in the movie, but people snort in real life, and it's hard in the movies sometimes if a guy is like in this kind of role, especially maybe just this role. It's hard to know if he's snorting because he's asked to snort, or if he's acting, or if he's like trying to play that he's done blow.
Yeah, I guess I didn't notice the snorting.
Maybe he did it right after I was thinking about, is he supposed to be on blow at some point?
There is some insane gum chewing.
Maybe he only, it was very strange. And I feel like, but in Falcon and the Snowman, Sean Penn gets all hooked on blow, and it becomes one of their problems.
So
back to the mom. Sorry. So you feel weird about the
Geraldine
Oscar
Page.
Yes. I don't have a huge opinion of her. I feel like her character, the way she plays it at least, or maybe written, feels like there are three movies going on here. One is a movie with her, one is a movie with everybody else, and one is a movie with Polly and Charlie. And it's like there are three different movies going on at once. And it doesn't quite, and I can't say I particularly care for her character in the movie or her in the movie. And she's been in a ton of stuff, and she's one of, if not the most, she's one of the most nominated actors in Academy Award history, if not the most. I think she's not the most. I think at the point when she lost for this award, she had been nominated for the most times without winning for anyone. She'd been nominated for Best Actress or Supporting Actress like 7 times without winning. And then she won the next year for some movie I've never heard of. The movie I really think of her in is The Beguiled, the original Beguiled. She plays Nicole Kidman in the Clint Eastwood version.
I just was looking up her filmography.
And I don't care for her much in that. I like the old Beguiled movie. I think it's a fun movie, but she is probably my least favorite thing in it. And I know, other than that, I don't have much opinion of her. Like, I think if she's in that, she's in Interiors. It's the other big movie I remember her from. I know our other mutual friend, Josh Barlave, really doesn't care for her. She's one of his least favorite actors.
Yeah, she's just another woman that I see, and I recognize her, but
same. It took me a minute. I was like, who is this lady for a minute? And I was like, I know she's somebody. Yeah. She's. Do you have this problem? I find when I watch the movies, it's much easier for me to remember the men, and I don't mean this. Probably saying terrible things about myself as being some kind of misogynist or something. I don't mean to be. I feel like I love and respect.
No, I've said that like 3 times in our conversation that it's hard for me to remember female actors.
And the farther back, the old movies, especially, it's really hard for me to remember which old actresses are in which old movies.
Yeah, we're dudes, and we.
I guess you see yourself on the screen, or you're trying to live a fantasy up there, and it's like you put yourself in the man's place, I guess.
It's got to be somebody like Sigourney Weaver or Daryl Hannah.
Yeah, I always recognize
they have just
Daryl
a certain
Hannah.
very, very significant, memorable look to them. But also, actresses that we grew up, their movies were on TV, and
sure, ones we're used to.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't say I can tell all the new chicks apart. So we'll see pictures and like, I don't know. But then I don't always know all the new people's names either.
Yeah.
So, or what they've even been in before. So there's no reason why I should. I can recognize.
But we've been in this
off Game of
abandoned
Thrones at
building
this
for a
point.
while, trying to get
Oh
into
yeah,
the safe.
yeah. You're right.
And
Okay,
so we
so
have
this is where
we have Barney, the safecracker, is with Charlie and Polly. They're doing their job, and Eric Roberts is on lookout. They're on, I don't know, pretty high up, right? 4th, 5th floor.
Yeah, they're up there.
And it's kind of an abandoned building.
Yes, it's at
There's
night.
like a lot of shafts and,
Yes.
and trip hazards and stuff that's just left around. And
It's in a state of disrepair for sure.
Yes. And Eric Roberts spots the undercover cop is coming.
Correct.
I forget, to pick up a drop or something? I think he's been maybe operating as a...
Yeah, he's like a
a
bag
pickup
man
guy.
or something. Yeah, but he's really a cop.
Yeah, so this undercover cop shows up, and they're hiding right in the middle of trying to crack the safe. The cop goes to open the safe, and he notices that it's been tampered with because Barney has been trying to drill through it.
Yes.
So he immediately starts to look around. He goes to take cover. He draws a gun. He notices Mickey Rourke and Roberts and Barney, the safecracker, and then he falls down a shaft.
Yes, and dies.
And he dies. And the way that it's cut, I'm telling you, I don't know if you revisited it.
No, I didn't.
But
Tell us.
Well, I'm probably going to try and grab the audio from
Okay,
the guy's
good.
scream as he falls, because it is pretty funny. But it also sounds like Mickey Rourke screaming. But the
Whoa.
way that it's cut is, like Mickey Rourke's character kind of falls and ducks out of the scene, and the next thing you see is this body just plummeting down this shaft. And it's kind of obviously a dummy. I had to run it back because I was like, oh my God, Mickey Rourke's character is going to die like an hour into this movie? I don't remember this at all. But no,
that would have been a
not
cool
him.
twist.
Yeah, I kind of wish it would have happened.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. Instead, the predictable happens. Jack Kehoe dies in a ramshackle building that needs to be condemned, as he does in every film.
He keyhoed once again. He fell down a shaft.
Yeah. I'm surprised he didn't walk in on his wife cheating on him before he fell. He had no wife. He lived with his mom. That was a great element. And another thing about the Jack Kehoe, Mickey Rourke, Eric Roberts, McMillan, Burt Young, and everybody in this movie, especially Geraldine Page and Mickey Rourke and Eric Roberts. These three people especially, I believe all these people were probably cast by Cimino. I could be wrong, but these all feel like Cimino-y choices to me. Just a second, I need to use the restroom really fast. We'll be back in 1 minute.
No, there's nothing that I wouldn't do just to walk that little girl home. Just to walk.
So yeah, because first off, Mickey Rourke is in all of the other Cimino movies of this period, except for The Sicilian. And I might argue he might have been a much better choice in The Sicilian than Christopher Lambert. And Geraldine Page fits right in with his Michael Cimino's weird lady casting fetish of, what's her face? The woman Isabelle Huppert is noted, people talk about how odd of a choice she is for the part in Heaven's Gate and how weird she is. And then we talk about how weird the woman, I can't remember her name, is in Year of the Dragon after this.
Yeah, Cimino's weird.
And Ariane is also very weird and is not a very good actor at all in what's that movie? Year of the Dragon. It's like he hit it big with Meryl Streep in Deer Hunter.
Yeah, he lost his touch with the casting of ladies.
Yeah. Daryl Hannah works in this though, I think, because you asked about that earlier. I didn't really give much of an opinion because I didn't really, I guess, think that much about how do I like her for this part. But she does by being, she seems like very class in it, so it works.
Yeah, she's a sweetheart.
She works as somebody more upper class than of a higher social strata than Mickey Rourke or whatever.
Yeah, she's an aerobics instructor.
Yes.
Very 80s.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you're right. The aerobics is one of the big 80s touches, along with the Cherry Duville Walk My Girl Home song or whatever we hear at one point in the film for a minute, which was a nice little thing. And a little minute of the movie sound weird. We were like, wait a second. All of a sudden the 80s broke out. Yeah.
It is very a throwback for most of it, but then that stuff, and then there's breakdancers as well. So the heist goes awry.
Yes, it goes awry, but Mickey Rourke wants him to leave, and he's like, "Oh, you boned us, Charlie." He's really mad at Paulie. He's really mad at Eric Roberts for boning them, and he thinks Eric Roberts had information that there was going to be. He's like, "What's this cop doing here right now at night, all alone, at the same time we're robbing this place? You know something we don't. What are you tell us?" And all this stuff. And he's like, "We got to get out of here right now." But the safecracker now, up to this point, we haven't mentioned this, but up to this point, the safecracker, who I said immediately got my sympathy or empathy or whatever, he goes on to continually be kind of not overly interested, but somewhat, because it is in his best interest for them to get away with this crime. He gives them kind of a fatherly, older brotherly kind of figure here. He's warm to them throughout this heist within bounds. It's very, very well done, really, I thought. And in this scene, he changes because he needs that money. And it's really, this is pretty good where Mickey Rourke wants to quit the job, but the safecracker now goes from being fatherly advice guy to being, "No, I'm getting this. I'm not leaving here empty-handed now."
Yeah.
And so
he said he's like, I'm 1 minute away from being in there.
Yes. And he gets the money.
Yeah. They get the money, they leave the body,
Mm-hmm.
and then Rourke starts pressing Paulie for information because he knows something
Mm-hmm.
that he didn't share with everyone else. So it's here that we find out that
the money is Burt Young's.
the money is Bedbug Eddie's, which we know, I guess, because we know the cop and all that stuff. But this is where Charlie finds out.
Mm-hmm. And really
And
where I
then-
found out.
Then the aerobic scene. They don't go on the lam, I guess, right?
Ooh, do they?
There's talk of not spending any of the money,
That's right. They talk
which
about
is a
not
great
spending
scene
cent.
there's a great. I like that scene a lot of Eric Roberts being like, "Oh, just a little, just a little bit." He's like, "Not 1 cent."
The nobody spends a cent in the movie after the heist scene is such a. We've seen that scene in so many movies, but
Yes.
it always feels like it came down to some point where they're like, we kind of need to say it again, or they're going to be like, "What's going on with the money?"
There's some hilarious tangents in this movie as well. So there's a cop that tows Eric Roberts' car in the bar.
Yes.
We waste so much time with this stupid cop. He's a parking cop. All
and
right.
this results in the Alka-Seltzer gag, right?
Yeah, it's a horse laxative.
Okay.
Yeah,
Horse
he puts
laxative.
Eric Roberts tries to get revenge on the cop for towing his car, and he goes back to the bar where the cop is always known
Which has
to go
nothing
for
to do with the
lunch.
main plot, by the way.
Nothing. It's just a prank that you see, and the guy drinks the laxative and then soils himself. But then also Eric Roberts calls all these other cops.
Yes, the scene gets very crazy.
It doesn't make any sense. He's like,
really-
you have a police officer down. So I guess he was trying to embarrass the traffic cop.
He was really trying to pour it on and get everybody to look at how for Eric Roberts, yeah, he only wants to embarrass. He wants to just lay it on. He can't have enough embarrassment for the cop.
Well, it has no bearing on the plot whatsoever.
Not at all. In fact, it has even less bearing on the plot than their scam at the restaurant that gets them fired. But to me, this is kind of like trying to be back to them being mean streets again. And this is their version of another scam or little funny slice of life moment here that's going to like chill this movie out. This is more of a character piece. And these guys more,
Yes.
and you see that Paulie, even after this night, is still, up to his old tricks, I guess. But I didn't find it fun at all.
So Rourke had done Diner.
Yes, I guess so.
Before this?
I guess so. I a little fuzzy
was a
on when
hit.
Diner's out. I saw Diner. Yes, Diner goes over big.
So, that's
This
another...
this may
kind
be
of-
the first Mickey Rourke leading man movie.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I feel like Diner had a big influence on stuff for a little bit.
And it was another. Diner is what, the 60s or something, but still feels more like the 50s, or is it the 50s itself?
Diner to me is like an American Graffiti, but it's less small town, last day of high school. They're like Brooklyn guys, right?
Or are they in Baltimore?
Oh, yeah, because Barry Levinson
This
is a
always makes the
Baltimore guy.
Baltimore. Yeah, I guess I'm
East
looking
Coast
at
City
this, and it does appear to me that, well, would you consider him or Matt Dillon the lead of Rumblefish?
Dylan.
Okay, well then yes, Pope of Greenwich Village is the first leading role. So essentially, at this point, the screws start tightening for everybody. We've been talking about this plot for 1,000 years, and it's really what happens is they find out who's behind it, right? They find the mob finds out somehow. How do they find out that Polly has to do with it?
Well, Polly's uncle works for Bedbug. Now, was the uncle the informant?
That's right. I don't remember. I remember the uncle is the one who we will get to in a second. But at some point, there are some other cops involved who are on the case.
Oh, yes. So you have M. Emmett Walsh shows up.
Oh, yes. The other good performance in the movie.
He's
Not
the
that there
one
aren't
who
others.
says the Irish twins.
Ah, yes. You're right.
I'm pretty sure.
That's right.
A lot of Blade Runner cast in this movie. You got M. Emmett Walsh. You got Daryl Hannah. Oh, wait. I was thinking Sean Young was in this, but she's not. But yeah. You're not cops, you're little people. Not that mother scratcher.
Italian cousins are kind of like Irish twins. So yeah, you got the great M. Emmett Walsh, who was born old.
But these cops, they never really gather much traction as characters themselves.
No, they visit Geraldine Page,
and she steals that scene with really a long speech. Then maybe they somehow there's a tape of the tapes are somehow involved. Let me just wind this plot description up, essentially. Okay.
Speed runner.
So the cops somehow get on to the safecracker, and the safecracker makes a deal with Mickey Rourke where Mickey Rourke's going to take the safecracker's money, and the safecracker he's going to give the safecracker's money to the mentally handicapped boy and the wife at some point, right? Did I have this straight?
Yeah, the safecracker is going to go into hiding.
Yes, the safecracker is going to go away, maybe forever.
Yeah.
And start a new life. And we see that happen, and we wonder. I really wondered, like, he's never going to get away. This safecracker, they're going to kill him. He's going to be the loose thread. No, he says goodbye to his wife in a very touching scene, which is the one where I thought it was sad she had to kiss him. And then he gets away.
Yeah.
He gets away, and she gets the money, and which makes Paulie mad that Charlie's going to give the money, which is probably true to their characters. And then somehow the mob finds out that Paulie is behind this. I'm fuzzy on that, and they hit him up at the racetrack, and they cut off one of his thumbs.
Yeah,
but
uncle's
before
there.
this, Mickey Rourke wins a bunch of money betting at the racetrack against Eric Roberts' horse.
I don't remember. I don't remember
Yeah,
him winning the money.
Well, there's a part where they go to the racetrack, and I feel like Eric Roberts is really pissed because he loses a photo finish, and Mickey Rourke is really glad he won all this money.
That's later.
Oh, okay. That's after the thumb is lost?
I think so.
Okay, so at this point, we have the famous scene where the thumb gets chopped off at the racetrack, maybe Eric Roberts is going to check on the horse, and his uncle shows up with Frank Vincent, another the classic Scorsese actor here, Frank Vincent.
Yeah,
another good actor, and
the guy who looks like a Muppet of an Italian guy.
Sure, not as much as Frank Silvestri or whatever that guy's name does, but the guy who maybe sued them. But at any rate, he does the thumb chopping. We know as soon as we see him in the movie that he's going to end up doing something henchman-y or evil or something. But yeah, he definitely cuts off the thumb, and then we have the situation where the thumb's been cut off, and he goes to Paulie at Charlie. Paulie goes to Charlie's apartment.
Charlie, I want to cut you off here.
Go ahead.
Charlie and Daryl Hannah have split.
They break up.
She reveals to him that she's pregnant, and then Charlie comes home and he gets an answering machine message, and she took his money, a good portion of it, for the child and stuff. And there's a whole other scene where Mickey Rourke gets to just punch stuff and break everything. He punches. He breaks a bunch of stuff. He trashes the apartment. He had bought a bottle of champagne and all this stuff, and then he sees passed out on the floor, and there's wreckage all around him. And then Paulie shows up with the missing thumb, and he's wrapped up in the bandages, and he's taking a bunch of painkillers.
Yes, that's right. He's all hopped up, and he goes into, this is probably the most famous scene in the movie, where this is the legendary scene where he just keeps yelling that they took his thumb, Charlie, and he goes into a lot of crazy modes. He does the thing about how you got to beat your woman in public, right, which embarrasses you. When Charlie tells him about how he and Daryl Hannah broke up, he's like how how you don't beat her in public. You take her in the back of the party into a back room and you beat her back there, and she walks out and she has to like keep her head down and cover up all hunched when she leaves the party. And that's how you keep your woman's respect. And then he breaks down crying about his thumb and
The
passes
bed bug
out.
took my thumb, Charlie.
Yes. Then that's the big quote of the movie, and probably the most famous line of Eric Roberts' career, I would say, is they took my thumb, Charlie. The bed bug took my thumb, Charlie. Yeah, that's his.
So he passes out.
That's his I must break him or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, then he passes out. Then so they go to something happens with then they win that money at the racetrack after that.
They go to the racetrack.
Yes.
And they're going to make all this money off of Polly's horse.
Yeah.
And I think that the thing is that Charlie doesn't tell Polly that he bet against it. Is that right?
Yes.
So they end up with this money.
Yes.
They're kind of back on top a little bit, even
Yes.
though the thumb's not coming back.
No.
And insult to injury is Polly has to, not only did the bed bug take his thumb, he's got to work as the bed bug's coffee boy.
Oh, there you go.
In his little hideout. He's got to serve him the coffee.
Okay.
So then we see Polly
Strange.
at the bed bug's little joint, and he's serving him the coffee, and the bed bug Burt Young sets him down, and he squeezes him for more information about this heist, and then Polly rats on Charlie.
Oh, yeah.
Charlie was part of the heist.
Just a second, I'm going to grab a soda.
So Charlie mails Barney his cut of the loot.
Okay, that's right.
And then makes a bunch of money on the horse, and things are kind of looking up.
Yeah. He got rid of his old bag and his kid. He'll never have to see that kid. And
but Charlie
he's got some money.
Yeah, and he
And
also
both thumbs.
has he has both thumbs, and he also has an ace up his sleeve because he is in possession of the undercover cop's tape. So he can basically get themselves out from under the bed bug. I don't remember why he waits to do this.
Yeah, I don't know. At this point,
I should have paid more attention to this film.
Yeah, as it was winding down, we'll talk about this right because we're almost to the end of the movie.
You will find if we continue this partnership that I'm more of an impression guy. I'm more of a sensory. I can remember things like that sandwich and jokes and stuff like that, but plot points are very hard for me.
I think it might just be this movie. Okay, let's solve this movie real fast. Okay, so essentially, what happens here? They end up at Burt Young's thing, trading the tape for freedom or some shit, something. Yes. And what's his face?
Now this is important in this scene when Mickey Rourke brings the tape out. He says something along the lines of I'm not afraid of you now, blah blah blah. He's like, I own you. He's like, I am the Pope of Greenwich Village. So there's your titular line.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I would have missed it again because once again I didn't see it the first time or second. Quick aside, I'm drinking here a real Mexican Coke, not the Mexican Coke you can buy in stores across the United States. They're selling fake Mexican Coke as Mexican Coke to keep you from buying the real Mexican Coke and thinking you're pulling one over on the man. Real Mexican Coke has a yellow lid, not a red lid like the
that looks like a Topo Chico lid.
Yes, it says Sabor Original.
So you can taste the difference.
I don't believe that I can.
It's good in a glass bottle.
Yes, it is. And with COVID and stuff and the gym being closed, I like giving myself places to walk to. And this guy, he sells them to me from a food truck in the middle of the night. I go to this food truck and buy real Mexican Coke from this guy.
It looks tasty.
It is. It is. Coca-Cola is about as good as it gets.
I haven't had Coke from a glass bottle in nigh onto a year.
Oh my goodness!
So. But I love this twist at the end.
Okay.
Because here comes Charlie with the tape of freedom.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So they're home free, but Polly is there as the coffee boy. He serves some coffee to the bed bug.
Mm-hmm.
He takes a nice big sip of it.
And here you get why we needed that sequence with the cop earlier.
And his mother?
No, I'm sorry. Of all the you're right. Of all the cop scenes, I didn't specify the one with the traffic cop and the horse
spiking.
laxative. Yes.
Yeah. But he didn't spike it with laxative.
No.
He spiked it with lye.
Yes.
So the bed bug's innards have been corroded.
Nice.
He's probably not going to survive.
No.
So they run out of there.
Into
And
the
really-
daylight.
Yeah.
Into the daylight crowd of the bright street, and Summer Wind or whatever performed by Frank Sinatra strikes up.
Yeah, they run out into the street of eternal
And
adolescence.
we get a big crane shot with them in a big wide, right, going up above the street. It's a very triumphant ending.
Wind.
Yes. And is the ending triumphant?
No, because
Is
they're
somebody gonna
screwed
probably
forever. They killed the mafia boss.
Yes, it seems like, I mean, I guess there are different eventualities, maybe, but that guy's got to have friends and family that are going to murder them.
Oh, they're screwed.
Yes.
Well, there's all this mention of going to Miami.
Their uncle's
If you
going to have to have
remember.
him killed, right? It's going to be, oh yeah, you're right, maybe going to Miami.
But
Mickey Rourke's
yeah, you
hometown.
get the feeling that the rest of their lives is not going to be probably that great.
These are
But they
Jackson.
live, and I was expecting Eric Roberts to have that archetypal character that he plays. You expect him to have the Mean Streets ending.
Where he
I don't
gets
even
shot up.
remember how De Niro dies. He gets
Well, yeah, like they get shot up into the street at the end. But you're right. You do. I guess getting the thumb cut off, and then at the end they're probably going to die is what happens to them. I thought in my memory the ending was really downbeat and kind of ended with the thumb. And I remember thinking that that didn't seem like that was that crazy for everything they did in the movie. But I misremembered. It turns out the ending is even less downbeat than that. Though maybe I don't know. So let's talk about this movie real fast here. Did you like the movie? What if you were rating this movie on a scale of 1 to 10?
I'm gonna be generous and say a 6.
Yeah, I was
Because
thinking like
I
a
did
5.5.
like the second half.
I like things in this movie. My take is, okay, so it was supposed to be a Cimino movie, and he quit allegedly because they wanted the budget to be too small, essentially. And then they put this other guy in charge. I forget his name now. It was all on IMDb. I got it right here.
Rosenberg.
No, before Rosenberg, they have a different director even, named Mark something or something like it. Ron Maxwell. So this guy, Ron Maxwell, he got replaced because he wanted to fire Eric Roberts. He didn't think he was believable as a New York street hustler, is what IMDb says. And so they fired him because he didn't want Roberts. What do you think about that call?
I mean, he probably had a good instinct there. I think the accent is tough.
You know what's funny is it didn't bother me, the accent. It's just Roberts
it's just there.
Yeah, it's like I'm not a New Yorker, and to me it's like, yeah, it's like maybe it doesn't sound like Robert De Niro or something to me, but it doesn't bother me.
No, accents usually aren't deal breakers for me, Like I can't think of any good examples.
Yeah.
Like Renee Zellweger as Bridget Jones or something. Like,
Sure.
Who cares? I don't give a shit if she doesn't sound authentically British.
Sometimes it can be weird, and sometimes it bothers me, and sometimes it doesn't. Like it bothered me in a movie that was going for it on purpose. What's the Grand Budapest Hotel? It annoyed me.
With the German accents?
Or just everybody does their own accent in the movie. Nobody goes for an accent, I don't think. Except for maybe Ray Fiennes.
That's the Amadeus. That started with, I think, with Amadeus. That was the big thing.
I really like when a movie like Last Temptation of Christ or Alexander,
that's what I was gonna say.
Makes like a consistent accent for people from a place. That was pretty cool. Like for the audience in Alexander, all of Alexander and his men all kind of speak with Irish accents. And even Val Kilmer as his dad. And then,
yeah. That's a good move.
And then in Last Temptation of Christ, all the Romans are British, and all the Hebrews are American.
The Hebrews are like working class, kind of almost working class.
There's a lot of New Yorkie.
And then you go back to
bearded New Yorkers, as calls them. I mean, as cut that line calls them.
I was just gonna say the Gospel of Matthew as well. Super ethnic Italian guys all playing the apostles.
Sure. And if you think about that, Passion of St. Matthew by Bach plays in Axitone. It also plays in Les Beaux Serges, and it also plays in Scorsese's Casino.
Nice.
That I do it justice. Okay, and then so I guess maybe we'll save talking about Mickey Rourke for if we do one of the other Mickey Rourke movies because we're running along here. But I have a
Yeah.
lot of Mickey Rourke thoughts. As far as Eric Roberts and his career, this helped all of these people. This movie, I think, was a flop, and it helped. Oh, I wanted to complain. Okay, so what I was saying about the directors, I got off track there, is that I think a major problem with this movie is Stuart Rosenberg.
Yeah, I agree.
I think he never paces the movie. I think it's probably part of the reason people feel like they're in different movies all the time is I feel like he's probably brought in the last second and thought, oh, everything's done. I'm just going to roll cameras, make sure nothing's messed up. I got pro actors, pro cinematography. And
He's like, we got a funny scene. We got a heartwarming scene. We got a romantic scene.
Or
there's that
kind of maybe
crazy.
it almost feels like he didn't even care that much about what those were even going to be. They're all just kind of played flat.
Yep.
Which
there's that weird scene where Rourke and Daryl Hannah like go off to the countryside.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's another like why? Why does that exist?
Yeah, it's just kind of like there's no pace or real feel to the movie, and in a way it has a charm, and I kind of feel like some people put that to the movie's credit in that it's not all in your face with everything like shots and stuff all the time, but looking at how just meandering and aimless the movie feels and how it never really works up much tension and just kind of or much like atmosphere in that scene at the end with Mickey Rourke and Burt Young, it feels like they showed up at some guy's apartment he just moved out of and said, let's make this look like a coffee room or something. It's weird. It's a strange film that it just doesn't feel like it was made by anybody with a passion to make the movie. And in a way, and I thought at first, like, that's part of the fun of the movie is that it is like one of these novels like Prince of Eddie Coyle, and it has that kind of very like gritty, relaxed, not as emotive and over the top as the performances are, the camera is not. It's not telling you how to feel very much, the camera. And except for with that crane shot at the end. But I feel like if it had been Cimino or anybody that was more passionate about the material, you would have had less emoting and a little more, like pace and just things like, just a feel for this is where this movie needs to go. This is the important beat of this scene. Like that scene about the sandwich business doesn't know if it's about the sandwich or about the racehorse.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really believe enough in either. Yeah, it's like these scenes like that's why I think that it's this movie where you can't remember the plot because you just stop caring for long stretches. You're like, these guys are rambling. Part of the fun of the movie is it's one of the last movies I bet that feels like a big budget 70s movie, but it doesn't feel like the best 70s movie.
So the movie was successful.
I don't know if I think it was a flop.
I mean, I guess it was successful for the careers of the actors.
I feel like it helped Roberts and Rourke. Like certainly Rourke goes on to a lot of big roles, and I think Roberts immediately. I mean, the next year Roberts gets nominated for the Oscar.
Well, here's something that I wanted to talk about real quick. The film came out in the summer of '84.
Wow.
Yes, it was a summer movie. So it came out in June of '84. So I'm looking at other movies that came out in the couple weeks leading up to it.
Uh-huh.
You have Gremlins.
Yes, I was gonna. Yes, I looked at all the 84
movies. Which I did not know was a
movies.
summer film. I thought Gremlins was a Christmas movie. The Karate Kid came out on the same day.
Week, as did Rhinestone, I believe.
Ghostbusters.
Rhinestone, Karate Kid, and Pope of Greenwich Village was on Siskel and Ebert that week.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
What would you say is the best of those three movies?
Ghostbusters.
No, Karate Kid, Rhinestone, or Ghostbusters is the answer.
Karate Kid is pretty good, man.
I'll take Karate Kid and a cakewalk.
Yeah, it's more nuanced. You definitely get more emotionally engaged. So
here was something I thought of with all Mickey Rourke's woman beating. Can you guess what actor called this film a perfect film? Johnny Depp.
Weird.
That is a fact.
How weird is that?
Oh, I feel like it's. I mean, it's funny now because of sad reasons, I guess. But as far as him just saying it, it's perfect. It's like that's the exact kind of movie a guy Johnny Depp's age in that year would have wanted to be in, maybe even auditioned for and didn't get.
Yeah, because those are kind of his big brothers.
and would have looked up to him and been like, man, if I had got a chance to do like that in a big movie, boy, I could be like that. Yeah, it's a total movie that a guy like Johnny Depp would love, I think. Pretty fun Coke commercial in that Siskel and Ebert episode. Oh, I was going to say, I looked at the Oscars for that year and looking at who that lady was up against, whatnot, Geraldine Page. But a thing I want to look up right now is the 5, we'll see if I can just name them without even looking them up. The 5 nominees for Best Song of the Academy Awards that year, I'm actually going to look it up, are amazing. Okay. So it's the year that Footloose came out, remember? Yeah. So Let's Hear It for the Boy and Footloose are both nominated for Best Song.
Whoa.
Ghostbusters is nominated for Best Song. Phil Collins' Against All Odds is probably the least memorable of the 5 songs. I'm trying to remember what the 5th one is.
What movie is it from?
It's from the movie Against All Odds with Jeff Bridges. Let's see, 1985.
Is that the Take a Look at Me Now?
Yes, Take a Look at Me Now. It's when I remember that song being. It's like all these songs. When you wanted to talk about like the years these came out and things, I wanted to bring this up as like these are the first songs that I really remember hearing and liking on the radio. These and that Matthew Wilder Break My Stride are some of the first songs that I really remember being in these things. And the winner was I Just Called to Say I Love You, I believe.
From the Lady in Red. I know that only. I don't know if I've ever seen the movie. So Gene Wilder.
I haven't either, but yes. But that was the winner.
My mother loves Stevie Wonder. And she had that on cassette tape. And that song is, I can't believe how many times I'm going to mention my relationship with my mother in this episode.
You're a lot like Jack Kehoe.
I tell you, every time that I think about my mother reprimanding me for laughing at a retarded man, I think about the song that was made fun of in High Fidelity. Yeah. I Just Called to Say I Love You. And I always hated that in High Fidelity because I love that song.
Yeah, me too. I love that song too.
And it's the song that most makes me think of my mother.
Aw, those 5 songs, you don't like the Footloose theme song, but I like all 5 of those songs. That would be but you at least have to remember that's one of the few years I bet where you can actually remember all of the songs. Like all 5 of those songs.
Bad. Think of how many songs Kenny Loggins had in movies in the 80s.
Oh gosh, so
no wonder he disappeared in the 90s. He could afford to.
Sure. Like when we lived up in Ventura and Oxnard and stuff, I feel like Kenny Loggins maybe lived up there in Ojai or something like, or maybe he lives up in Montecito or Summerland. I feel like he's like one of the entertainment rich kings that lives up in that little stretch between Santa Barbara and Ventura somewhere.
The Caddyshack song is my favorite Kenny Loggins movie song.
I think so too.
I'm all right.
He has so many I forget. Like I start to lose track of how many there really are.
Highway to the Danger Zone.
Sure. There are more though, but the I'm All Right does strike me as the best of those 3.
Dip, 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 dip. I'm all right. Well, I think that's a good point to depart on.
Yes, we trashed. What's his face? Yeah. Oh yeah. Are you a big fan of? How do you feel about the movie Cool Hand Luke?
I love it. I feel like it's way more directed than the Pope of Greenwich Village. Maybe Rosenberg was just so tired at that point.
Oh, there was one more thing I wanted to cover real fast if you have time. I wanted to ask you something we should ask on this. Have you seen any new movies or lately that you've seen?
No, I have not watched a movie in quite a while, actually. I got the last new thing that I've gotten into was The Undoing, starring Hugh Grant and Nicole Kidman on HBO.
Our friend Lara Maya really likes that.
Yeah, I wasn't crazy about it, but you get into it for sure. I'm a sucker. Like I don't seek out murder mystery stuff, but it works on me. I'll get into it if I start watching it.
I saw Tenet, and I saw Mank, and I saw Hubie Halloween.
Oh, I did see Hubie Halloween about a month or so.
What do you give Hubie Halloween out of 10?
Probably like an 8.
Me too. I was gonna say 7.5, but I think 8 is good.
Yeah, I loved it.
I did too. I also loved Mank.
You know, it's crazy. I had no idea that was a movie. It's David Fincher, right?
Yes.
I didn't know anything about it until you had mentioned, I guess you texted me about it.
That's when I was watching it.
Or
Yeah.
did you watch Citizen Kane or what
No,
did you watch?
I was watching Mank, and I think I texted you that it was really good. Maybe before I was even done watching the movie.
I thought you were watching something with Liev Schreiber.
Oh, the RKO 281.
Did you
I
watch
did
that?
watch that. I did watch that as well. Yes.
So yeah, so then the Mank thing later was brought up, and I was like, oh,
Well, I watched
that's
Mank
what he was
first.
talking
Mank,
about.
yeah, Mank got me to watch RKO 281. I saw a terrible movie that was older called Polar Express.
Yeah.
That was terrible. Have you seen The Witches yet?
No, I
Me
don't know if I
neither.
will.
I guess we should say, just in case we don't get to another one of the movies. He's only in a couple movies with Mickey Rourke, other than this. But no, maybe not. We'll save it. We'll save it for if we do the Expendables. We'll get crazy and try to do some Mickey Rourke because we'll be more efficient about synopsizing.
Can you list how many films they're in together?
I think they're in 3, but I'm not sure. And I learned that from the other Eric Roberts podcast.
What's
I was
the
thinking
other one?
there's a third one that I think maybe has both of them and Daryl Hannah in it.
The Black Pope of Greenwich Village? You ever heard of the Black Pope?
I don't know. No.
It's a conspiracy theory that there's a secret pope.
Oh
It's
wow.
behind the scenes. They call him the Black. I guess there's supposed to be a gray pope and a black pope, and they
Whoa.
control different things, and no one knows.
That sounds cool.